First things first, I want to thank all of you guys for joining us today. We really want to get you guys this information because it's so important. So obviously, Colton is somebody that I have a ton of respect and admiration for. He's somebody that is honestly one of the most brilliant tacticians and people that understand how to really get granular with putting offers together, how to really strategize. And that's something that is been, really impactful to our agents. So we want to share this information with you today. So I want to get started by just kind of asking Colton to walk us through what it's like in OC right now. What's the current situation in Orange County right now? Obviously, we know the average price is $1.3 million, but kind of give the people that are maybe from out of the area or even out of the state that are on this webinar today, just an idea of what Orange County market is looking like at the moment.
Yeah, so kind of what we're dealing with is the same as everybody else. No inventory, tons of demand, multiple offers, and we are starting to see one of the big things that I keep hearing people say is like, oh, well, it's starting to get easier. And it's like, no, we're not getting easier, and it's going to be a long time before it does get easier. We're starting to see an increase in inventory. We saw an increase over the last 2 weeks of 3%, and 3% is a drop in the bucket in comparison to the 260% increase in inventory that we'd have to see in order for us to be considered balanced. So the competitiveness of the market is not going away for a long time. As things do take a downshift here as interest rates rise, naturally, that's going to start pulling buyers out of the market. We will slowly start to see inventory increase, days on markets will get longer, and it will take time to get to a balanced market, and that at least is at the end of the tunnel. But as of right now, buyers are still getting absolutely annihilated in multiple offer situations. Like, for example, we just had one yesterday that was listed at 1.2. The offers it had 23 offers, sold for 1.6. So it's unbelievably competitive. With that competitiveness requires us to have a very tactical approach in getting offers accepted. And while there's all the standard stuff out there that people use, it's more important than ever that you not just use one or two of these tips, that you utilize all 12 of them if you can. And that's one of the things that I think most people have the biggest mental block with, is they feel clients aren't going to be willing to do some of these things. But in reality, by not doing these things, it's costing the client that much more money in time in the marketplace. We're seeing home values appreciate $20,000, $25,000 per month. So when we see a client lose something over maybe a $500 or $1,000 term, there's no way with the proper articulation to the client that they're not going to feel comfortable moving forward. What we as agents have to get better at is articulating why this strategy works, how it's going to bring them a value and a benefit, and how it's ultimately in the long run going to save them a ton of heartache, a ton of loss of the perfect home. And they're going to really, really be able to start narrowing in on the home that they want by utilizing terms that's actually going to earn them that negotiation.
Absolutely. Let's talk about, obviously, being in such a competitive market and being, in an area where it's so difficult to get offers accepted, just to kind of give the local or even the audience that is a little bit further out a little bit of indication of what they're up against. Approximately how many realtors are in Orange County?
I think we have 64,000.
I mean, that's absolutely insane. And out of how many of those, how many are how many active listings do we currently have on the market?
Right around 1,400. David, can you see me now?
I can see you. Yes, I can.
All right. I had to do it from my phone. I'm so sorry I'm going to be shaky and holding this, but I figured it'd look better than staring at some black boxes. So yeah, it's definitely super competitive. We've got 65,000 agents. There's about 1,500 homes on the market. So we've got a long ways to go before this thing gets balanced back out to a point where we're going to start not necessarily needing these types of terms.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is a lot of these terms, we're going to continue using them even as the market balances out, because all we're ever trying to do in any negotiation is how, without being the absolute highest price, can we dramatically increase the likelihood of getting an acceptance? And these types of terms are still going to apply even when the market balances out. The problem is, as of right now, it's just 100% a requirement.
Right. So let's talk about that then. Let's talk about the offers, and specifically, start getting into some of the strategy of the offers that are getting accepted for our agents. Of the homes that our team has been writing offers on, just to kind of give people a broad overview, what's the average amount of offers per home, would you say?
I mean, gosh, it changes so much. Dependent on price point in the area. I mean, like I said, that one for 1.2 just ended up going with 24 offers. And we're seeing some where they have 10, some that even only have 7 or 8. But like what we've been tracking, and this is what's the most important, is you got to track what works. And what we've been wanting to see, because we track every offer that we submit as a team, because of course we want to find out what's working, what's not, when do we need to start pulling back on some of these terms, when do we need to apply more, when do we need to be more aggressive, when do we need to be less. And in order for us to know that, we have to have an understanding of what is and what isn't working. But what we've been tracking is the offers that agents are submitting to us. What percentage of those offers are being submitted with even a fraction of the terms that we're recommending for our team? And what we found in the last 112 offers that we've received on our listings, only 17% of agents use more than 2 of these steps. So it's like, and when we hear agents all the time, like every agent, if I ask anybody, they're all going to say, well, of course I know how to write a winning offer. And then they're one of the overwhelming percentage that doesn't even utilize 2 of the 12 steps that we are using to actually win offers. So when I just want to make sure that we clarify, and I'm kind of multitasking here because I'm trying to get my assistant to bring me my computer so I don't have to hold this. So bear with me here.
Let's get into exactly what the team is doing. Obviously, you have this 12-step process that you're referring to, and we'll definitely get to that. But what exactly are the team doing right now to get their offers accepted? I know one important piece you've implemented, as you just stated, is how all of the tracking is being done with the agent's offer. So let's kind of do a deep dive into that and start talking about exactly what that process entails, and then we'll kind of get into the 12 steps.
Tracking has been, and keep in mind, like, please know that this is not stuff that we have started doing because we're geniuses. We were getting the shit kicked out of us for a really long time in the market. And it was out of absolute necessity that we started getting really, really intentional about tracking what's working. Because while I knew what needed to be done, and while we teach our agents what needs to be done, it wasn't working as well for them as it was for us. So I have a showing partner who does all my showings, and she handles my personal clients. And we got 15 out of 16 offers accepted. And what we were noticing is a lot of our team agents, they were having to submit 7 offers, 8 offers to get theirs accepted. So it's like, okay, where's the disconnect? We all have the template of what needs to be done to get an offer accepted. Why aren't you guys getting your offers accepted? And so what we ended up doing is when an agent submits an offer in our office, they have to submit the offer with a staff member included. And that staff member is tracking all the terms of their offers, because what I wanted to identify is who's actually implementing what we're teaching here at the office. So when we have people when we tell them do the 12 steps, we want to find out how many of the 12 steps are you using. So we would track things like what percentage over ask price are you offering? We would track things like how many contingencies were applicable. This is the super easy stuff. How many contingencies were applicable to the agreement? What were the average timeframes associated with each of the applicable contingencies? And we wanted to see, like, even in the structuring of the offer email itself to the client, who's actually utilizing the email template that we put together, which please don't let me forget. I will make sure. Actually, Zeus, if you could, I can't write because I'm holding this. Yeah. We'll send you guys the templates. We'll send you guys the tracking, and we'll send you all the resources that we're utilizing, and we'll send it to everybody's email who registered for the webinar. So you don't have to worry about recreating this stuff. So as time started going on, we noticed really quickly the agents who had the lowest or the highest offer to acceptance ratio, they were the ones not utilizing all 12 steps. So they were the agents. Thank you, Holly. I've got a computer coming here, guys. So thank you. Can you try to get me logged in? Okay. So anyway, we ended up tracking each of the agents' offers. And the agents who didn't utilize them weren't being successful. The agents that did were. So when we started tracking all the data points that make a competitive offer competitive, we were immediately able to see where we could improve and what can be changed to get more offers accepted. And a huge piece of that, of course, came down to what percentage over ask price were they offering. Generally speaking, if the team average was 8% over ask price is what's getting accepted, the people submitting 2 to 3% over weren't. And it's obvious why. It's because they're not submitting offers that are competitive with the market. If we were, for agents who were submitting really competitive in terms of market, they were adding an inspection contingency, an appraisal contingency, whatever they had. Well, the offers that are getting accepted only have an inspection contingency. We have a really, really strong offer when we only apply an inspection contingency that's 5 to 7 days. And the problem is where we get the most kickback is agents say, okay, well, I have a loan and I have an appraisal. Okay. We all have loans and we all have appraisals for most of these offers. However, so what we started seeing is agents had the biggest kickback, and I'm going to turn this so I don't look like I have horns, is the people who weren't using the appropriate contingencies. So 17 standard contingency periods are not working. We know that. So we needed to make sure that we were only submitting with an inspection contingency. And all of the things that I'm about to tell you require you to do this work with your clients up front. Not after the fact. We got to do it up front. And the agents who do this had massive, massive success because when they met with their clients, explained to them the importance, because we sit everybody down for a strategy session, and we let them know the importance of working with a lender who is going to have the ability to give us a fully underwritten and approved loan before we identify that property. And 2, sometimes a client can't be fully underwritten and approved. We need to make sure that we work with the lender who can get us a fully underwritten approval within our inspection contingency, which, keep in mind, in our offers is only 5 days. So we're making sure, because we know we've got a thumbs up, we get it done within our inspection period, which is our get out of jail free card. If we can get the inspection, if we can get the appraisal ordered, if we can get the loan fully approved within our get out of jail free card, we do really well. And the challenge is too many people weren't having their clients slow down on the front end. And too many people, especially if you're doing online leads and if you're doing Zillow and if you're doing any of the type of portal leads where you got to just go show up and you got to go look at homes. If you're not slowing that client down on the front end to say, hey, pump the brakes before you think we're going to go out there and look at properties, we need to make sure that 1, you're fully approved, not because we don't want to waste our time, even though we all know that's the answer. We want to slow you down to ensure that 1, we're going to have the ability to structure your offer in a way that's going to guarantee of an acceptance. Because if you go out there and you wait to find the perfect property before you start getting aggressive and trying to structure an offer that'll get accepted, by the time you get your financing figured out, by the time I explain to you the terms of the contract, by the times that we figure all of this stuff out, that home's already going to be sold. So we need to make sure that 1, we have all the financing dialed in with a lender who can actually perform in a 5-day period. And I get kickback all the time from people telling me, well, I can't get a lender can't perform that quickly. Yes, they do. Ours does it every single day on every single file, on every single offer that we write, because it's what's required in order for our clients to be successful. So we have to front load the process, make sure they are fully able to do our 5-day inspection period. If they don't have a fully underwritten loan approval, we need to make sure that we get it done within that 5 days, because we are not submitting our offers contingent upon the appraisal, and we're not submitting the offers contingent upon the loan. But then everybody's like, well, what if it doesn't appraise? We haven't had appraisal issues. So we do have to have that conversation up front. Some clients won't have the financial means. So before you say, well, that won't work for these clients, no. Some of the clients it won't work for, but the overwhelming amount of them, it will, if we slow down on the front end, prepare them for the process, and explain to them exactly what needs to be done in order to be competitive. So the tracking of terms was by far, and it's not one of our 12, make sure I don't forget it. It's not one of our 12, but the tracking of what is working and the tracking of what is not is imperative for your ability to stop throwing darts in the dark and praying to God you hit the target. You really got to track if you're submitting 104% ask price and you keep getting rejected and the rest of your terms are strong, you're going to have to increase that because you're going to have to find the sweet spot in the market of what is working and what isn't working. But it's not the highest offer that wins. It's going to be the offer that gives the seller the highest probability of a successful close. So in that, the tracking of that, all this data and information and the sheet that we're going to send you guys will give you the ability to actually start tracking this information so that you can stop shooting in the dark. And also it's important because as interest rates go up, as days on market extends, as inventory increases, I also want to know when we can start adjusting back in the buyer's favor and not towards the sellers where we've been going for the last 2 years.
I think it's super important, the points that you made. And I think that the one key piece that somehow, or so, in many cases gets abandoned or doesn't get paid attention to by a lot of agents is how granular you have to get with the structuring of your offers and how important it is to put those terms that are going to be competitive to be able to get more of your offers accepted for your clients. It's up to us as agents. It's our responsibility to be able to educate our clients on what it's going to take to get their offers accepted, and to be extremely articulate in how we present it to them to in a way that they're able to understand that and it resonates with them. So let's talk about the 12 steps a little bit. Let's kind of get into that and exactly what it is that the agents are doing that is helping them beat out these offers. So if you want to kind of start touching on that, Colton.
Yeah, so for sure. And one real quick, if there is anybody, if you guys have any questions on this, please feel free to put them in the chat box as we start making progress through this. If at the end of it, because usually there is a bunch of questions, I will give you guys a direct contact so you can ask us questions so we can help you out. So feel free to ask anything and then you guys can always reach out privately. This is super simple and it's not included in the 12 steps, but actually it's shocking to me as a listing agent how few, nothing, Steve, I'll catch you up later. It's shocking to me how few agents do reach out. So while it is something that's not on this list, of those 112 offers that were received, there was only 17 that submitted them with terms that were considered competitive. And there was only about 28% of agents who actually tried to call us, which was shocking because it was one of the most ridiculous things. If you're going to try to submit, and I get it, a lot of listing agents don't answer the phone, they don't want to give you any information, but a ton of them will. And especially if you structure it in the right way, because every agent's going to tell you, well, I'm not going to tell you where the offers are at. I got news for you. Agents are some of the worst negotiators of all time. So if you just utilize this approach, it works, not every time. And again, understand the value of the micro benefits that each of these steps is going to take. Because when maybe 6 aren't going to work, 6 will. So we want to make sure that we're utilizing the strength of every single one, because ultimately one's not going to win us the offer. So we always ask them, and it's like, look, what's the ideal close of escrow and what's the ideal offer for your client? And they'll put together that information, which is the super basics and the generics. Number 2, do they need a rent back? Would that be appealing to them? If so, how long? Have that information available so we can structure that in the offer. Again, super simple, not one of our steps. And then we ask them, where are you at currently with offers? Well, you know what? I'm not going to disclose that. Okay, no, I totally understand. I don't want to waste your client's time. I don't want to waste my client's time. Say, for example, the home's listed at $1 million. Do you have anything over 1.1? No, we don't have anything over 1.1. Gotcha. Anything over 1,050,000? And immediately they gave you the one deflection. Like, no, I'm not going to disclose to it. And you're like, oh no, I totally understand. We don't want to waste your time. We don't want to waste our clients. Do you have anything over 1.1? And if they say no, now you're going to go try to bracket them so you can find out roughly where the rough gray area sweet spot's going to be. You got to do this because agents are the worst negotiators ever. It takes physical endurance, and it's the same thing with lead conversion. Is when somebody gives you an objection or if somebody deflects you, it takes like physical and mental strength to hold that wall and to hold that objection up. Like, people don't like having to do it, which is why objection handlers work so well. Is we ask one time, it might work, it might not, but if you ask that second time, the likelihood of them giving you an answer is astronomically better than it was on the first time that you asked. So they go, oh no, 1.1. Okay, do you guys have anything over 1,050,000? Yes, gotcha. So we're somewhere right around like 1,075,000 to 1.1. Yeah, we're somewhere in that sweet spot. Now at least we're not just shooting in the dark. Now at least we've had the conversation with them. If they say yes, we are over 1.1, anything over 1,050,000 sound more apprehensive, like that's a problem. No, nothing over 1,001,150. Okay, and again, we're helping bracket where that price parameter is. But if we don't ask that question and you think 8% is going to work because 8% over list price is generally what's getting accepted in that area, what if this one's 12? And oftentimes it is 12. The one that we just sold for 22% over what the last comps were. So if you just use a basic generic 8% over ask or 9% over ask, 7% over ask, it's not effective because some homes, because of their condition, their location, the views, the amenities, whatever they got, are naturally going to sell for a lot more. So asking the questions and creating the rapport with the agent, finding them on Instagram, finding them on Facebook, finding them on LinkedIn, one of the steps here is going to be triangulate a relationship between you and that agent. If you are intentional, and if you don't, and if you're a brand new agent, this is something you absolutely need to get intentional with, is you need to go out and create as many relationships as you possibly can because you plan on being a successful real estate agent for a very long time. So if you start taking these steps today, this will work for you. And this is a step that gets offers accepted for our team all the time. You can't triangulate a relationship if you don't go look on Facebook. Find out who your mutual friends are. Go find on Instagram, find out who your mutual friends are, check on LinkedIn. We have a group within our brokerage to where I just put in the chat, does anybody know, Shane, you're here, so I'm just going to use you. Does anybody know Steve Shane? And if they say yes, fantastic. Can you please help me get in touch? I'm calling him Shane. Can I please have you get in touch with Steve Shane? So he's got a listing that my client absolutely has to have. And I'd love to be able to create a relationship between us. It works all the time. We've had our agents, when they submit offers, they're not allowed to submit an offer without first asking in our team chat, who knows this agent? So if they submit an offer without asking, they're going to get reprimanded because why would you give up such an important piece of information? Why would you not try to triangulate a relationship that's going to make your job that much easier, or at least open the door to get that person to say, okay, yeah, I know you know Steve. Look, we're kind of in like the 1,150,000 range. You're going to have to remove contingencies. At least use the relationship to get more information. Because when we look for more information, you're going to be able to structure a better offer.
I think just as important as triangulating that relationship and leveraging those relationships that you already know is being very careful not to burn any bridges in this business. Understanding that there's going to be a time where you might have to, reach out to that person that you had to deal with, and maybe it didn't go the way you wanted to, but to continue to maintain at least a civil and professional relationship with agents, because one of these days you're going to want to get that property, or they're going to be on the other side of the deal, and you want to continue to maintain and nurture those relationships as well as leverage the ones you currently have. So I think that's a super important piece, Colton.
100%. And man, everybody, what a bummer. We can't actually see her face.
I know.
I just saw Joe said that he tried this after giving us that tip, and he said it didn't work. However, they did give him the opportunity to increase, which again is all we can ask. It's just so important that one, you be respectful, you be friendly, and if you level with them, because if you'll hear a listing agent get on the phone, and it cracks me up because they just go, why? And it's like, look, trust me, I know your phone's blowing up. I know how busy you are. I know what a nightmare this is for you and your clients, blah, 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 blah. I just am here to make sure that this goes as smoothly as possible for both of our clients. And you'll sense the total shift in their attitude and how they speak to you when you just level with them. At the end of the day, should they be complaining that their phone's ringing off the hook? Absolutely freaking not. Like, I remember what it was like to stress when our phones weren't ringing off the hook. So I'd rather be stressed because it is than it isn't. Yeah, somebody else, Steve just put in there, also ask them if they have any upcoming listings, because whenever they sell one in the neighborhood, inevitably what ends up happening is 3 others are going to sell in that neighborhood within the next couple of months. We'll move on to step number 2. Step number 2 is one of the most important that we've implemented, and it is one of the most guaranteed. is to help you get an offer accepted. And that is a partial or a full release of deposit. Now, again, if you have a client where, of course, finances are tighter, this is going to be something that scares them. So they're not going to be able to do a full release. I have clients who, when we offer this to them, they flat out say, I'm not walking away from this home for anything more than, for anything less than $30,000. I'm not walking away, give them the deposit. Okay, which makes sense because it's a client who understands how much the market is appreciating. It's a client that understands the runway that they have to get a home at this price point is super limited. So as homes are appreciating in value, if they understand that they are going to increase by another $20,000 to $30,000 by the time they locate a home that works well for them again, then they're going to be more willing to do some of these terms. One of which could even be a partial release of deposit. That partial release of deposit makes sure, one, it's got to be legal in your state. Two, you need to make sure that you do it in accordance with how escrow would do a release of deposit. Because there are scenarios where if you just go in and put in the contract, I'm going to release $5,000 of my deposit, and it's a seller who breaches the contract. I saw this scenario happen, not with our team, but it ended up happening. They said, we released $5,000 of the initial deposit. So they came back and the seller is the one who canceled on the buyer. And the seller said, well, we get to keep your deposit because you release it. They said, no, that's if we cancel. They said, that's not what your verbiage said. Your verbiage said you're releasing it. So it didn't matter who canceled, we're canceling on you. And they ended up winning and they kept the deposit. So you need to be really careful because your escrow will be able to give you the verbiage that makes it so subject to the terms and conditions agreed upon within this purchase agreement. If the buyer at their fault cancels this escrow outside of the terms, you got to make sure that verbiage is in there so you're protected. But doing a partial release of $5,000, $10,000, I don't have clients that are going to walk away from a property over $5,000 to $10,000. I just don't, because we have a very in-depth conversation about how much more money that will cost them later down the road. So if they're not going to walk away from it one way or another, and if we end up doing a deposit and they find $5,000 to $10,000 worth of damage, they're not walking away from it. So all a seller wants to know is who are we going to accept that isn't manipulating the terms within the agreement, who's not trying to negotiate terms back in their favor during the escrow. And the best way that you can prove that to the seller is, look, we're going to give you back a portion or all of the deposit. When you do that, you guarantee the seller that you're not out there to play games. Mm-hmm. Because too often I see people submitting with no loan contingency, no appraisal contingency, but they want a 17-day inspection contingency. We're not dumb. You're keeping it contingent upon the appraisal. You're keeping it contingent upon the loan. And you're going to use your get out of jail free card to weasel out of this thing if one of those terms doesn't come back the way you want it. So you got to make sure when you're doing it that, one, you can play the game of chess better than they can, because it can put you into a really bad position. So when we fully understand the terms of the contracts, and dependent what state you're in, some of these things might sound weird to you because your state operates differently. We're in the state of California. This is how things are working here. But doing that release of deposit is going to be extremely beneficial.
Yep. So step three.
Step three, giving a bonus to the seller, covering a portion of closing costs, covering title fees, covering escrow fees. Those are really big, important pieces, because if the property doesn't appraise, the costs that are associated with their out-of-pocket hard costs, that's coming out of their pocket no matter what. So if the property doesn't appraise, you can give them whatever you want. But at the end of the day, if the home doesn't appraise and if it is going to be renegotiated, at the end of the day, there are, especially now that the dust is up in the air with what's happening in the marketplace, sellers are going to be more willing to negotiate than what they have over the next several months to keep deals together, because they don't want to go back on the market because buyers aren't going to reach as far to get an acceptance. So when we can cover some of their hard out-of-pocket costs, it's guaranteeing a higher net for the seller. So, and again, this is one of those things that when we have the conversations with the buyers, your buyers aren't going to be mad at you for giving them these tools if you present it the right way. If you just go to them at the offer table and you go, look, you got to remove a partial of your deposit, you got to cover their closing costs, you're going to have to guarantee this, you got to guarantee this, and all the rest of the steps that we're about to teach you, they're going to be like, dude, who do you represent? But if you approach it the right way up front and we have a conversation with them and we say, look, My job as your agent is to make sure that I give you access to every single tool that is going to increase the likelihood of you getting your offer accepted. First and foremost, I want you to understand clearly that these tools are only options. And I only want you to utilize the tools that you are comfortable as a buyer utilizing. Some homes, you're going to be willing to throw the entire tool chest at them. Others, you might want to try to just use the screwdriver. You might want to try to hammer. What's my job is to make sure that, one, you have a deep understanding of how to use each and every one of these tools. You know how to keep yourself protected. You know how to keep yourself safe, and that you're not going to leave yourself vulnerable to a seller during the transaction. So my job is to make sure that you have a clear understanding of what all this is. Does that make sense? And they're going to say yes. But if you just throw all this shit at them at the day that they're supposed to submit an offer, you're going to lose clients because they're not going to have that consultation, that, and I can't think of the word I'm trying to use, but the approach that is actually going to show them like, hey, I am your advisor, I am your consultant, I'm going to give you access to every single tool that's necessary to be successful in this transaction.
It's those soft skills that you need to really be able to present it the right way to your client and give them the peace of mind and have them at ease with you know, the decisions they're making, and being able to articulate that is such a huge point.
It's the delta that makes this work or makes it not work, because so often we hear agents be like, oh, well, I said that, and then we listen to the call and it's like, you said the same words, but your tone completely implied something completely different. Mm-hmm. Like in there's that 4-letter word that you can use in a million different ways and it sounds a million different things, and it's like the tone of how you say something is so critically important. It's not what you say, it is absolutely how you say it. And a lot of people don't take the time to listen to how they sound. So record yourself when you talk to these people. But during that consultation, this is the time that you establish yourself as their trusted advisor. Because when I sit down with a client and I demand that they sit down with me for a strategy session, not demand, again, you got to use the right terminology. But when we open the door for somebody, we let them know we're opening this door and we're going back to the office to sit down for a strategy session. And let me explain to you why that's so important. And then you got to be a master storyteller, and you need to be able to explain scenarios and connect these people with how this is going to benefit them and how it's going to steer them away from steer them out of harm's way. But you got to be able to tell stories and connect it with past clients and past negotiations so that they can connect themselves mentally with why I should listen to this person and do what he's saying, because look what happened to these people. Mm-hmm. Like, we have to be a master storyteller. And when you master the art of telling stories, you're going to have so much better luck with your clients, and you're going to have so many more people agree to what you're telling. And again, we're the anti-sale salespeople. In our office, we train, you will not talk anybody into something that's going to put them into harm's way. We will talk you out of a deal if I would talk myself out of that own deal. We will 100% advise you the way that we would advise ourselves. But again, you just got to have that strategy session in order to be able to establish that trust, so that then when you get to the negotiation table, their first time looking at a contract isn't going to be the day they're putting pen to paper. And that's something that we use, and why we're able to pull so many clients in our favor is we sit down and talk to somebody. Has anybody taken the time to actually show you a purchase agreement and discuss what you're going to have to agree to get an offer accepted? No, you're kidding. Okay, we need to sit down and set that up immediately. The last time ever that you want to put pen to paper is when you're actually about to put pen to paper. You need to have a full understanding of everything that this means before we find you an emotional attachment that you say, okay, do whatever you want. I want you to have a deep understanding of what this is before you have an emotional attachment to a property that you're going to negotiate yourself into a bad position with. Does that make sense? Yes. And they're always going to say yes.
Love that. That's so huge. Okay, on to step 4.
Step 4, on-time closing guarantee. This is one that people, if you're working with the wrong people, this will be scary for some of you. And if this is scary for some of you, find different people. We will do an on-time closing guarantee. We guarantee you that if we do not close on time, that we will reduce our commission by $5,000. I don't have to worry about it because they're in with my clients and I know we're going to close on time. And again, you got to put the verbiage in there to make sure it's going to be at our fault. If it's our fault that we couldn't perform, then at that point, we'll reduce our commission by $5,000. Your market, you may have lower price points. You may need to adjust your commission. Out here, our average commission is about 24 grand. So you can equate that to your average commission, give the same percentage. But we will guarantee you if we do not close on time, because when we submit the terms that we submit, we'll do a 12-day finance contingency with a 5-day inspection with no loan, no appraisal. And I have listing agents all the time call us and say, you guys can't do that. Like, are you guys even going to be able to perform? Yes. And we guarantee it, because if we don't, we'll reduce our commission by 5 grand.
I think there's nothing more important in that piece than having an incredible relationship with a really good lender who understands what it's going to take to get offers accepted in this wild market and be able to perform on time to protect us and to protect the clients.
1000%.
Super important. Step number 5.
Number 5, this one's pretty easy. A lot of people do it. A lot of people know about it, but again, don't go use 1 or 2 of these. Sometimes you will, but if you can, go utilize every single term that is going to get your offer accepted. Because if you use 6, you might get it accepted, but if you use 12, I guarantee, and I constantly beat this up because we have the same arguments here in our own office. It's like, why didn't you do this, this, and this? Well, I didn't think I needed to on this one because they didn't have any other offers. And then we inevitably know what happens. They get that other offer and it blows you out of the water and you don't even get a response. So it's like, don't go into a negotiation half-cocked. Give the entire strength of your offer, the best possible offer that you can. And keep in mind, none of this shit has to do with the highest price. It's all about providing stability and the word I'm trying to look for. And you're trying to, what the hell? You're trying to give them confidence that this will actually close at the agreed upon price. And that's what this type of stuff does. So number 2, a per diem. If we do not close on time, we agree to a $200 a day per diem. So not only are they going to get a $5,000 reduction in commission, and by the way, if you're trying to get a seller to like you as an agent, not only are we guaranteeing that we can close on this, because I'm putting skin in the game to let you know if we don't perform like this, I'm going to lose 5 grand. That creates a lot of confidence with both the seller and the agent that you're working with. Number 2, not only are we going to decrease this, my buyer's agreeing to pay a $200 per day per diem. Now, my agent is not paying a per diem, or excuse me, my client's not paying a per diem. My lender knows if you do not perform, you are paying that per diem. So that the client doesn't even have to pay it. And again, dramatically increasing the likelihood of an acceptance, because, okay, if you don't pay, I'm going to net more money. And if you don't close on time, I get an extra $200 a day. Please don't close on time. They're happy because they'll benefit from it.
Absolutely. All right. Step 6.
Hold on. I'm making sure that I don't forget this and something screw up on it. Oh, setting the proper expectations, coach your client on what it takes to make them competitive. This is the strategy session and the buyer consultation that we have with every single client. The amount of agents who are willing to go show property without sitting down for a buyer. What if you have a buyer who 100% is not going to be willing to write a competitive offer? How many homes and how many tours and how many weekends without your kids and how much time away from your spouse or just not taking care of yourself, going to the gym, whatever you do, how many of those hours are you going to give up to work with a client who's not going to be realistic? Or even worse, what if you have a client who will be realistic, but you didn't take the time to coach them to teach them what would take them to be realistic? And so you end up finding that perfect dream home of theirs. You didn't do your job, prepare them for what it would take to get competitive and to write a competitive offer. They lose their dream home, and then you got to spend another 3 to 4 months with them. And I hear agents all the time, well, they're going to submit this one bad offer and the market will teach them their lesson. That is a reckless, absolute neglect to your clients, that if that is your mentality with how you deal with people, you do not deserve a license, you do not deserve to represent them, and you should not have their business. Because if your way of being an advisor and a consultant is going to be let the market kick their ass, and then that's going to teach their lesson because you don't have enough of a backbone, and I'm not talking to any of you guys. I get mad at the agents who say this stuff to us, but it's like, you don't have enough of a backbone to have a conversation that your client needs to hear, but it's not what they want to hear. So it's easy for you to avoid. And you know, when you submit that offer, they're going to get rejected. Oh, well, now they learn their lesson. No, You, as their agent, should have had that conversation with them. As their agent, you should have advised them what it's going to take to be competitive. And when you fail to do so, and you didn't prepare them for that, they're going to have resentment towards you. And I promise you, if they've had a better agent that's working with them, you're going to lose them and they're going to go back to that agent. Yes, I will definitely go over these steps, and I will also send you what we have written down on all of them. So you'll get the whole deal on all that. So setting the right expectations with the client, but having data to back it. Like, the most important thing to keep in mind here is you cannot change somebody's opinion with your opinion. You need to have data, and you need to have facts, and you need to have materials ready that is going to reaffirm the information that you are telling them. Like, now more than ever, everybody's talking about how interest rates are going up, demand's going to drop. And now we see these headlines: demand's down 38% of what it was last year. Well, yeah, there's no homes to sell. Demand is simply how many homes went into escrow. If there's no homes to sell, demand's naturally going to be down. But yet a headline that I just saw literally 2 days ago: demand muted 38% over last year. There's nothing to sell.
What a deceiving stat that is.
And again, as the market starts to balance out, a lot of this shit is going to be really important for us to be able to articulate to a client. And sorry, I do cuss. But you have to have the information readily available. If you are in Orange County, you need to go follow Stephen Thomas, Reports on Housing. That guy will give you every single granular detail of what is going to make you a good agent. It will make you an expert on the economy. It'll make you an expert on the information that he provides will educate you so much, and it will make you such a better agent. And you're going to have data that he can show you, because as we do see a 3% increase in inventory, you're going to see this huge spike. That's because we're coming off of the floor. We have no inventory. We're in the dirt right now with inventory. 3% isn't anything. It's not a drop in the bucket in comparison to our 5-year average, which is 35,000 homes on the market in Southern California. Like, you got to make sure you have access to this data, because then you can make these huge headlines that are big and scary for a client. You can take away a lot of that impact because they're just sensationalist headlines. So when you heard back when COVID hit and foreclosures picked up, foreclosures are up 400%. Yeah, it's because there was one. Now there's 4. It's not a big deal, but the headline and the percentage that they use is what scares people. Yeah. So you got to have the data available to help educate these people. And when you do, it's something that kind of frustrates me sometimes, even when you're like, hey, guys, go watch this video with Stephen Thomas. And then you ask, did anybody watch this video? No. How serious and how committed are you to actually providing value to your clients? Because if you were, you would be listening to this data, because it's going to help you better protect them and help avoid them from making mistakes. People who want to sit on the fence right now want to sit on the fence because they think values are going to go down. If you don't have the ability to articulate to them how dramatically we would have to increase our inventory in order for that to happen, you're not doing your job. Sorry, got off on a tangent there. So
no, I think that's an absolute valid point. I mean, too many times we see people get sucked into fear mongering and see, how that affects people's mentality of what the market's like. But going to somebody like Stephen Thomas is somebody who's going to provide you with those cold, hard facts that you're going to be able to articulate to your clients. Yeah. So step number 7.
I think I must have missed something here. Sorry. All right. I'll make sure I get through all of them. This is written this big, and clearly none of this launched the way we wanted it to today. So bear with us. One, we already talked about this a little bit. Have a conversation with the listing agent. Find out what's important to the seller. And this is the part that really matters. And again, all these things are tiny little micro adjustments that are going to dramatically increase the likelihood when you use them all together in unison. If you use one or two, it's not going to be as successful. So when you hear an agent like, well, the agent won't get back to me. Well, did you call him? Yeah. Did you text him? No. Did you email him? Yeah. Did you reach out to him on Facebook? No. Did you reach out to him on LinkedIn? No. Did you reach out to him on Instagram? No. Did you see if he had any mutual connections? No. You got to go do all that stuff. So if you can't get a hold of an agent, be persistent. And again, they might be annoyed with you. I don't care if you're annoyed with me. My job is to make sure that I get your clients. And I did just have an agent who cocked an attitude with one of my showing partner. And she was like, gosh, I haven't heard back from you. I was like, hey, look, I totally understand how frustrating this is for you because I know how busy you are. But on the same side of this, I have a family with a newborn baby on the way, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they have nowhere to live. So please forgive me for trying to ensure that I get a hold of you. I just want to make sure that I can get your seller the deal that they're looking for and give my clients a chance to be presented to your seller. And she immediately, you could hear it, felt like a total asshole, and she was. And she's like, I'm so sorry. But if you don't have the ability to communicate with somebody without being a confrontational asshole, you're going to get a different response.
Yeah.
Because you can say those exact same words with the wrong tone and still piss her off.
Mhm.
But now we're telling a story, and you still have to tell that same story to a listing agent. Connect people that are human. And it won't work for everybody. Some people are just assholes, and there's nothing we can do about that. But a lot of people aren't, and they have hearts. And when you connect them with a kid or a family or somebody who's going through some type of horrible heartache, which so many of our clients are, do your job and connect somebody with it, because all of a sudden you might not even have the best offer, but if there's an emotional attachment between you, the seller, the agent, you've got somebody who's going to give you that first right of refusal. But if you're just frustrated because you're mad and you're showing houses and every agent's a jerk and the market's out of control and blah, 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 and you bring that mindset and you bring that attitude into the marketplace and you bring that attitude into your negotiation, I'm not working with you. You're mean. What are you going to be like when you're not auditioning to work with me? What are you going to be like when the showing partner, what are you going to be like when the inspection comes in and we actually have a difficult conversation to have? That's when this stuff really, really, really matters. And you got to start playing the part, auditioning for the jobs, and doing what you got to do to get the damn deal accepted. So utilize all methods of communication.
Absolutely. Step number 8.
Step number 8. This one, not everybody has access to, so I'm putting it out there. Some of you do, some of you won't, some of you don't currently have it, but you can get it. HomeLight is a partnership that we created. They do have parameters. They only want to work with certain teams that are going to be able to bring them enough business, but it will give your clients the ability. This is really, really good for people with lower down payments, but to give them the ability to purchase cash. It will also give the ability for somebody who is selling a home. HomeLight will buy that home, allow them to submit an offer that's non-contingent, buy their house cash, then they can sell their house. And yes, of course, there's going to be a cost associated with this, but the cost dramatically doesn't outweigh the appreciating market that they're dealing with and how much over an ask price offer you're going to have to submit when you're financed. Because the average cash offer gets accepted 3% less than a finance offer. The percentage that they charge our clients is 1%. So you will get a lower offer accepted utilizing this form of financing, because it's going to take your shitty financing deal and turn them into cash, because 1 out of every 4 offers is cash. So oftentimes you're not going to be the highest offer that wins. You might be the highest offer and you still might not win because the finance offer didn't give the same assurances that the cash offer did. But you can be financed and write terms of exact way I'm telling you. Don't do a loan, don't do an appraisal, just use your 5-day inspection, which most cash offers are going to require at least a 10-day inspection. You win. You give them the same assurances that the cash did. Granted, you got a loan, but if they back out, they keep your deposit. And if they keep your deposit, they'll go sell it back to the cash guy with your extra deposit. Utilize these things because it really, 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 really will work.
Absolutely. All right, on to step number 9.
Oh yeah, that's my job. I was waiting for you. Sorry. Minimize the number of contingencies and eliminate them if you can. So that's exactly what we were talking about. We want to make sure that 1, don't submit with the loan and an appraisal. Do not. You don't need it. You got to make sure you got the right lender. You need to make sure you have a complete understanding of how the contract works, where you can back out of an agreement, where you can't. But most of the time, say it didn't appraise, you do your inspection, you found out there's $20,000 worth of damage. House didn't appraise. We just did this, and the listing agent smiled and she was like, touche, that worked. I try not to do that as much as we can, but the home didn't appraise. There was a lot of work, and we said, look, we'll move forward, but we're going to have to reduce the price for these repairs by 20 grand. She said, deal, let's do it. We got it done. But if we made it contingent upon the appraisal, we never would have got the deal accepted, ever. So we just got to know when to utilize each of these. When you do have an inspection, or you do need an appraisal, or you do need a loan, which you really shouldn't. If you know what you're doing, and if you have an ability to articulate this to a client in the right way, they will understand it. They will understand their protections. They will understand how we're not manipulating, but utilizing the terms within the agreement to keep them protected, because appraisals just aren't an issue right now. Yes, it will start being more of an issue, and we need to be very conscious of that, because as dust is in the air and as people get scared, which is understandable, we're going to start seeing appraisers pump the brakes on the adjustments that they've been giving them. So we got to be conscious of that for sure. But when you do have a contingency, don't do 10 days. 10's too long. Standard for a loan and appraisal, 21. Standard for an inspection in Orange County, 17. I see agents submitting standard terms in their agreement every single day. You are guaranteeing yourself and you're guaranteeing your client that you will not get the offer accepted. So don't submit those terms, because you're guaranteeing that they won't work. So 5-day inspection, we can't do an inspection in 5 days. How are we going to do that? Work with better people, be faster. If you know a counter offer is out, and we always make sure we send this in our email to the client, I've already ordered the inspection for next Tuesday. If today's Monday, what day is today?
Today's Wednesday.
Today's Wednesday. If I know I'm going to have an acceptance tonight, I let her know I've already ordered an appraisal I've already ordered the inspection for tomorrow at 2, and I also tentatively scheduled the inspection for Friday at 1. So just know the second we get the executed contract back, we're already in full motion. Because the listing agent goes, oh, somebody who's proactive. Don't worry, if we don't get the offer, I'm going to cancel those. If those don't work for your seller, we'll reschedule. But you're again letting somebody know you are an aggressive and you are an assertive agent who is going to get the job done. Because if I have an agent with the perfect offer, but the agent's an absolute dipshit that doesn't know what they're doing, they're unprofessional, they're terrible in their articulation of what they're doing, they present their offer with nothing other than see the attached offer. Like, there's just so many things that agents do on a daily basis that he immediately raises a red flag and says, I don't know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And even if you do know what you're doing, and we start seeing this, veteran agents who are just getting freaking burned out of this crap, and it's like, you do know what you're doing, but you're see attached, or you just write offer with a bunch of attachments as it looks like shit. Like, that stuff matters. We have an offer template that we use, and the amount of times I hear from people tell us, hey, your offer was, hey, just so you know, you guys wrote a really clean offer, and that was a really professional presentation. I wanted to work with a professional agent, and I can tell that's what you guys are. Like, we get that feedback all the time, because I stole a template from somebody who was smarter than me and put it together. So we stole their template. We started using it because it had that impression on me when somebody submitted that template to me. So we got to do that.
Absolutely. Step number 10.
Big one. So if we need people and we want buyers who have financial reserves to cover a difference in an appraisal. So if the property doesn't appraise, I want to make sure, sorry, we're going a little bit over, then we're going to make sure that we can cover the difference. So, but if you have a 20% down buyer who only has 23% of money, you don't have a buyer who can bridge the gap in the event the home doesn't appraise. So if you can talk to the lender, can I get this buyer approved with 10% down? Because if I can, that 10% down buyer has an extra 10% of money left over in the event that the property doesn't appraise, or if we find something during the inspection. So if you have the ability get them off of the 20%, lots of clients will do this, not all, lots of them will, and put the lesser amount down so that if the home doesn't appraise, you have the money to play with. If it does appraise, don't worry, put the full 20% down. They don't have any private mortgage insurance. They don't got to worry about it, but it's a big piece.
Step number 11.
Minimize the down payment. Little stupid thing. Don't ask the seller to pay for the home warranty. I get that it's standard. By the way, standard doesn't exist. Like, standard, if everything was standard, they wouldn't need us. Everything is a negotiation. Everything is up for negotiation. Everything can be changed. If you have an offer in at $700,000 and $700,000 and a freaking $700 home warranty is what loses you your negotiation, you're going to be pretty damn upset. So don't add a lesser net for the seller.
Step number 12.
Another one, make sure you are looking for homes. And again, as inventory slowly starts to increase, it's going to be a long time before we're balanced. Our average time on market here is about 26 days currently. A hot seller's market is defined as anything 60 days or less. We've got a lot of days on market to even go into a slight seller's market. So it's going to take time to get our inventory to that point. But when it does happen, look for older homes on the market, because sellers are absolutely going to be overpricing their homes. Buyers are absolutely going to stop reaching as far as they have to win these negotiations. Take advantage of the sellers who picked the wrong price point and sit on the market. A month ago, there was nothing on the market here for over 2 weeks, unless you were a $5 million plus price point. But if you focus on listings that are 30 plus days old, especially if you have a 5% down buyer, or you have a buyer with really not advantageous financing, make sure you go after older homes that are going to be more willing to work with our shitty terms. And that sounds awful, but when we don't have strong terms and we can't do a lot of these things, we got to do whatever we can to pull things into our favor. And going after listings that are more stagnant, that have been sitting on the market, doesn't mean anything's wrong with them. In fact, most of the time it's going to mean they just picked the wrong price. So go after those older listings.
I know we're up against it on time, but I just want to kind of wrap up with one other important point. I think just as important in following the 12 steps, for me, it's just as important for agents to understand the soft skills and being able to articulate it to their clients. It's those little tweaks that Colton mentioned. Sometimes that even includes coaching other agents through the process. So can you just give a quick, brief explanation on that?
Say that last part again. Sorry.
So understanding how important it is to be able to articulate what it is that you're trying to do to your client and be able to give them that sort of guidance. Sometimes it also involves having to kind of coach the agents on the other side of the transaction through the
for sure. Yeah, and you got it. That one can be tricky because agents all like to. Yes, I will share that template. So it's hard, because oftentimes if you structure it in the wrong way, somebody will be offended that you assume they don't know. So there really is an ability to articulate somebody and help them educate how this process is going to work. But when you explain it and you do it with a nice, kind voice, and you have a nice, kind tone, and they know that you're not being condescending to them, and that your goal is simply just to help put the two things together so we can get this deal done and move on to the next, you have better luck. But where we see the number one disconnect on all of this crap always comes down to people using the wrong tone. They say the right thing, but they say it in the wrong way, and it gets a completely different result.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps it up. I mean, we got our 12 points in. We hope that you guys got some incredible and impactful information for your business. A couple of things, quick announcements I wanted to make before we wrap up. And you guys are all invited to this. So on April the 15th, we are having a grand opening at our office. It's going to be tacos and tequila. We're going to have a great time here. It's like I said, April 15th from 5 o'clock to 8 p.m. All of you guys are more than welcome to join us. Please let us know if you guys are going to be coming. Also, one other quick point, someone that Colton referenced earlier in the webinar here.
Oh yeah.
On the 28th, huge announcement. We are going to have Stephen Thomas here at our office to be presenting live. So he's going to be covering the spring OC housing update, what's going on in the market, what to expect, what's to come. It's going to be a lunch and learn. So lunch will be provided. So we encourage all of you guys to be a part of that. Join us here on those 2 dates, and please contact us. Let us know if there's any other questions. I will be sending out those templates to you. Please get on, follow Colton, follow me on Instagram, reach out to us if there's anything that you possibly need. And we thank you guys for your time today. And we again apologize for the technical difficulties.
Thank you guys. Yeah, sorry we don't know how to use Zoom.
We'll get better, we promise.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care,
Appreciate
everybody.
it. Reach out to us anytime with any questions. We'll talk to y'all later.
Thank you.